Hello all, let us talk about I2C communication and mostly on the pull-up resistor and bus capacitance related topics in the I2C. So we know that I2C communication basically is a open drain communication. So in a open drain communication, you need an external pull-up for the bus to go high. So coming to the topic, basically if you see a I2C communication, you have a master. So let us take a point-to-point based communication, and you have a slave, and then you have SDA and SCL lines between them, and you have pull-ups, right? So this is how a simple configuration looks like. So now when we have this configuration, when a master tries to send some data, whether it be a clock initiated or data clocked, now that will be a simple square wave, right, at a particular frequency. So we can have a 100 Mbps, 100 kbps or 400 kbps data rate, or 1 Mbps. So different data rates are possible with respect to the I2C. So we have to see the compatibility between the devices for the maximum data rate. Now if you see this scenario, you have a particular time period for this. That's what we are talking about, where we derive the data rate, and then we actually initiate a proper square wave from the master. Now let us assume a scenario that all the channel between the master and slave is an ideal one. Ideal one meant there are no losses, we don't see any capacitance or anything. So the same waveform, the square waveform, should reflect at the slave. Now in reality, practical scenarios, that is not the scenario, where you have the PCB trace capacitance, you have the pin capacitance of the device, which varies the rise and fall time of the signal. So now in reality, when you input this, you see such a waveform, and then like this. So this is how a waveform would look like because of the capacitance. Because the capacitance on the board takes time to charge, so it increases the rise time of the signal. So now one has to understand what are the consequences of a signal reaching the destination this way rather than this way. Now simple example of a EEPROM. If you see here, the clock frequency that is allowed is 400 kHz or 100 kHz. There are two modes, which is the standard mode or the speed mode. Now let us take a scenario of 400 kHz. 400 kHz is like you will have a clock of around 1 by 400 kHz is like 2.5 microseconds, right? So you will have a 2.5 microseconds time period clock, of which the high time would be 1.25, because it will be 2.5 by 2. So now you have for the high level of this signal should be around 1.25 microseconds. Now if you see the data sheet, the maximum rise time that is allowed is 300 nanoseconds, that is mentioned here, 300 nanoseconds for 400 kilohertz. That means 300 nanoseconds is nothing but 0.3 microseconds. So because of the capacitance on the bus, your signal shall rise this way, and this rise time should not exceed 0.3 microseconds. That's the maximum rise time that is allowed. That means the signal should be this way, and any signal that where the rise time exceeds the given 0.3 microseconds would lead to a wrong data interpretation, and hence we say that there is a channel loss. That means the data that is being transmitted from the transmitter is not received at the receiver properly. So this is the major thing from the data sheet which you have to remember. Now based on this we have to determine the the pull-up resistor and the capacitance. Just for our information, so the maximum capacitance on the bus that is allowed for different speeds, the 100 kbps it is around 400 pf, for 400 kbps it is around 400 pf, for 1 mbps which is a fast mode plus, it allows around 550 pf of capacitance. Now as you increase this capacitance, now there is another option which is unidirectional I2C, which is 5 mbps, called a ultra fast mode. So for this we could not find the data, so you can just check by yourself what is the kind of capacitance that is allowed. So based on, now we can derive one thing. So you have a master, right, and then you have a slave. So let us assume this is these are two lines, and then S1, and you have S2. So that means there can be number of slaves that are connected. So there will be two pull-ups for a SDA and SCL lines, right? So as the number of slaves increase in number, the bus capacitance also increases, right? Because each pin on this, that is SDA or SCL, each pin will have a capacitance, and this capacitance adds up to the bus capacitance, and you have to overcome that bus capacitance. Now that is one of the reason why generally when we select a pull-up resistor, ask anyone, straight away one says 4.7K is the resistor I would choose, because that has been the standard resistor that is used based on some calculations between the master and the slave. It is mostly used in one-to-one communication where there is a single slave connected to a master. Now as in some other designs, we must have seen 1.2K resistor, right? Some might have seen 1.5K resistor. So why these resistors are used? Different resistors are needed. We just need to understand. So here, as the number of slaves increase and the capacitance increases, what happens is if a square wave again is output from the master, because of the capacitance, the rise time shall increase. So when you have example 4.7K pull-up resistor, this pull-up resistor only supplies the slaves, right? Because that is the only resistor where you will have the power for an open collector or an open drain configuration. Now for this current will charge the capacitance on the bus, so it slowly increases. Now if you want this rise time to increase, definitely you need to source the current faster. That means instead of 4.7K, you have to reduce the pull-up resistance to example 2.2K or 2.5K or 1.2K, whatever, to increase the current sourcing such that the signal rises quickly. So one concrete relation we can derive is that as the number of slaves increases, that means as the bus capacitance increases, you have to reduce your pull-up resistance, or we have to say increase the sourcing from the pull-up resistance such that you do not exceed the required rise time at the slave side. So that is one concrete relation we can mention. Now in this scenario, so the relation between the pull-up resistor. So again, one more scenario is that you cannot have as much low resistance as possible. So example, we have talked that 4.7K, as we increase the slaves, the rise time is increasing. So we reduce the pull-up resistance. So how much can we reduce, or what is the relation between the rise time, the capacitance, and the pull-up resistance is so R pull-up the maximum value is determined by the rise time required. So in the rise time we have mentioned like 300 nanoseconds previously, which is 0.3 microseconds. That's where it comes from, by 0.8 plus 3 into the total bus capacitance. So this is how you derive the pull-up resistance. Now you can see here, as you increase the bus capacitance for a fixed rise time, you see that the pull-up resistance must be reduced. So that means you need more sourcing. So one scenario where we can consider, like as the bus capacitance has increased beyond a certain level, definitely this pull-up resistor is not enough, and you must have a current source instead of a pull-up resistance, where you can source enough current to the slaves. So those scenarios we can say are very less on the constraint dense boards that we have or that we design in our designs. So we can say like the maximum limit of I2C devices generally we don't use on the boards, or we don't find that intense I2C application. Now this is one scenario where we talked about the pull-up resistance. There is one now we have to understand how to determine the bus capacitance. So we have been saying that the bus capacitance is entirely dependent on the slaves, the number of slaves that are connected. So along with the slaves, what happens is, let us assume you have a board here, okay, and then I have a microcontroller at the center of the board, example, and I have around 10 EPROMs. Okay, so I have a I2C bus that is distributed to all these EPROMs. That means you are having the traces, the I2C traces of length equal to the distance of the each EPROM spaced from the microcontroller I2C source. So there is some length associated with this trace. So when you take example a PCB like this, and when you take, let us assume this is a microcontroller placed on the top, and there is a EPROM placed on the top, and you have a trace that is running from this to this. This trace will have some capacitance, parasitic capacitance we can say, with respect to the ground. So this also adds up to the I2C capacitance. So this actually depends on the amount of capacitance, depends on this length of the trace. So the longer the bus you have, the higher the capacitance, and less the number of devices that you can connect to a I2C bus. This is a straightforward relation, and this has to be, this is like either you need to determine it through some simulation or use a standard means. Like for example, if you take the capacitance for a 50 ohm impedance trace on a PCB, you have around 3.3 PF per inch. So this is a standard for a 50 ohm trace, the copper trace on a PCB. So basically you can say microstrip. So this is 3.3 PF per inch of a trace that is running on a PCB. You will have a 3.3 PF of capacitance. So now the total bus capacitance on a I2C is nothing but the capacitance of each device on the bus, right, into number of devices, right, or if we consider a single device, capacitance of each device, that is, and plus the trace capacitance, or we can say parasitic capacitance. So this is how we determine the total bus capacitance of a I2C, and this is in turn used with respect to the rise time that is mentioned for these particular devices, and then the resistance is calculated. So it's a loop where you have to adjust between the capacitance and the resistance. Generally the designers, based on their experience, for a simple microcontroller based boards where you do not generally need more than one or two devices, they just go ahead with this 4.7K and place these EPROMs close to the microcontroller. Close meant like not very close, similar to how we have oscillators. That is not feasible. So as close as possible, and then route with the smaller traces and work on them. But if the EPROMs had to be placed far away, then the bus capacitance comes into the picture, and based on that we have to adjust the pull-up resistance, or if the number of devices has increased. So it's a very interesting topic, and generally most people go by their experience from previous designs rather than doing all these calculations. And because low power boards, especially the microcontroller based boards, they should work straight away with the I2C, and post the assembly it's very easy to change the resistance, unlike the high speed designs where it's very difficult to probe the trace and determine the issues. So a simple oscilloscope, if there are any issues with respect to the bus, a simple oscilloscope probing should determine the rise time and the fall time, to know if there are issues with respect to the rise time and fall time. So hope it helped you. Please let us know if you have any questions. Please post your comments and like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.